Hi there. I want to talk today about ETFs, exchange traded funds. It's a relatively new thing. Some time ago, you had things called unit trusts, and everybody from Old Mutual to Sanlam to FNB was selling you unit trusts. And basically, a unit trust, they bought a whole lot of shares. They bought some, they sold some, they tried to beat the market. And so you had a good diversification. Rather than you just buying one share, you'd bought a whole lot of shares. So that was a unit trust. Unfortunately, because they're trying to buy and sell the whole time, it involves a lot of fees, and it requires a lot of experts sitting in very expensive offices in leather chairs and wearing smart suits, and they all need to be paid money. And unfortunately, that means that you have to pay fees. And in another video, we've looked at these incredible fees, 1%, 1.5%. I had a unit trust with Old Mutual. It was called Old Mutual Investors Fund. I was paying 5% and putting away money religiously every month and wondering why it never seemed to grow because of the high fees, and why I never got dividends, which is another thing that annoys me. But anyway, so let's move on to ETFs, which is something a little bit different. They've also bought all of the shares in the market, but they simply hold them. So if it's the top 40 in Johannesburg, you bought the top 40 shares and you just hold them. You don't buy and sell them and try and be clever. In other words, you're going to track the market. And you can also buy international ones, MSCI World. Many companies offer that. You bought the world. I'm simplifying it now, but you bought shares all over the world. Apple, Facebook, Nike, whoever you can think of, you've bought it. And so therefore you've got incredible diversification, very low fees, 0.3, 0.4%, and you, with some of them, and we'll look at that now, you get dividends, which is very nice as well. So on your Easy Equities platform, you'll see we've been looking at equities, but we could also look at ETFs. And if you have a look here, there's the top 40. Here's China, if you're interested in China, or there is, if you just want the world, there's MSCI World. This is Satrix, by the way. You get a lot of other companies doing the same thing. ABSA, Signia, they also do exactly the same thing, essentially. We'll come back to that now. There's MSCI World, Signia, as opposed to Satrix. So no matter what you choose, it's fine. And again, if you want to buy Signia, it's just like buying a share, and with Signia, by the way, you also get dividends. So if I've got $100 to put in, I'm going to get 2.1 shares of Signia MSCI World, and you can see how it did, by the way. It obviously went down with the Ukraine crisis and with the Rand being so strong, but you can see in the long term, it's done very well, and I'm sure in the end it'll do well as well. And the cost, 39 cents. Hallelujah. All right, let's find out a little bit more. And there's a nice website here, which is called etfs.easyequities.co.za. And you'll see some of these, we've been looking at them already. But let's look at that Signia MSCI. That's the one we were just looking at now. And we're going to have a look at, there it is there. And we're going to learn more about that. And we're going to see exactly what I showed you now, that in the long term it did quite well. Your TER, your total expense ratio, is 0.69. What I like to look at here, and it pays dividends. That's what I like to look at. It pays dividends, and you're going to get them in December and in June. And we'll come back to this now, but you can see the performance over 10 years, 18% a year, 5 years, 14% a year, etc. And there's your dividends. I'd like to download this fact sheet. Have a look at this. Because this gives you a little bit more information. Again, it tells you exactly how many cents, 14 cents, 19 cents you'd get as a dividend. They call it an income distribution when you get it, December and June. So I like to look at that. I like to see the graph. And this I find quite interesting here, which is basically looking at the top 10 shares that you own. So 5% of everything you own is in Apple, 4% is in Microsoft, 2% is in Amazon, 1%, 1.5% is in Alphabet, Google, etc., etc. So you can see your top 10 holdings. And if you're really interested, there's a whole lot of information there. Not really interested in that. You can also do something interesting on this website, and that is compare. There's a button at the top here saying compare ETFs. So we can compare the one invest, I don't know what that means, invest, one vest, whatever it's called, MSCI World, Satrix, and the one we were looking at now, which is Signia. And guess what? I mean, because these are index tracking funds, you'll see all of them essentially did the same, which also makes you feel good, because no matter what you chose, you basically had the same result over 3 years, 15%, 15%, 15%. Yeah. And of course, please, shares, ETFs, all of these things are a long-term investment. So don't freak out because over 3 months it went down 5%, or year to date it went down 11%. It's not the end of the world. It will recover, it will come up, and you'll be okay in the end. So those are ETFs. Just one interesting thing that I thought to myself this morning when I was preparing this. Don't forget, there is a charge for this, and you may want to say to yourself, well, couldn't I do it myself? And in fact, you could. There's nothing wrong with that. Let's look at the top 40. This is Ashburton, and again we go down here and we're going to have a look at the fact sheet of Ashburton, and we're going to see what they own. Here it is here, and they own our old friend Naspers, BHP, Richmond, etc., etc., etc. If you wanted to, there's nothing to stop you going onto your Easy Equities account, back to your equities, and saying, okay, let me take Naspers, and I'm going to take, let's say I've got 10,000, I'm going to take 250 and put it and buy Naspers with my 250 Namibian dollars, 250. Yeah, and I'm going to get 0.1. Naspers is very expensive. I don't care about that. I bought Naspers, and I could go through that whole list, and I could actually buy the top 40 on the JSE. And I could do it in equal measurement. You see here they've been clever, and they've given us, I don't know if they are so clever, they've given Naspers a higher weighting than Anglo-American, and Standard Bank is only 2% rather than Naspers. You could be very simple and just say I'm putting equal amounts, $250 into each of those. I think it comes out at 10,000. So I've got $10,000 to invest. I could do it that way. It takes a little bit of time, a couple of minutes. It's not the end of the world. It does get a little bit messy if you want to start selling. If you want to sell one of your ETFs, it's a simple matter of clicking one button, and you can sell your ETFs. But if you have individual shares, a long list of individual shares, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Here's Satrix, MSCI World, and I've got, what have I got there? $1,000 or something in it, and I need $500 to pay for something. I could sell, it works out the percentage, and I'm going to get my $500. Sell now. Cool. So it's much easier, I think, to sell and buy with an ETF as opposed to having all of those individual shares. But it's up to you. You decide what you want to do. But I hope that's explained a little bit more detail what an ETF is. I personally have ETF in the JSE, a local South African one, and I have an ETF which is international. So I'm trying to cover the two bases, and you can decide what you want to invest in. But it's a good way to diversify your portfolio at really very low expense and at no effort.